Happy Halloween and welcome to the hotel.
Thanks so much.
Didn't you stay with us last year? You had the most hysterical costume, which it looks like you are wearing once again. You need to be more creative.
Jeez, man. I'm not wearing my costume yet. And wasn't it last year, too, that you insulted me just like this?
Do you live, eat, and sleep the hotel industry? Looking to brush up on your game? You've come to the right place. Welcome to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman.
Hey, everybody. Glenn here. Welcome back to the No Vacancy podcast. Thank you so much for listening. It's absolutely wonderful to have you here each and every single week. And I know this week we have got ourselves a bang-up show. Man, I can hardly believe it. I'm so excited. I'm getting all jiggly all over. And it's nothing to do with the guest that's sitting across from me right here in the room right now. I'm excited because I have Chip Conley, who's going to be on the show in the next segment. That was a great conversation. Be sure you stay around for it. But today I do have, of course, Mr. Bruce Ford. How are you, sir?
Glenn, it's wonderful to see you today on this beautiful, sunny, vibrant afternoon of joy.
Yes. I've never heard such joy come from you before. I mean,
I get to spend the day with you, man.
No wonder why you sound so miserable. That's true. We are recording this podcast same day, so if you're downloading it on Friday night, we're recording this Friday morning, and that's really fun. That's real exciting for me, but not as exciting about this, Bruce, because I want to encourage everybody to check out Duetto. Duetto is our revenue strategy experts, and this show is brought to you in part by Duetto. And, you know, the revenue strategy technology platform, thousands of hotels are using them these days, and they are making more money and beating market rates. If you want to learn more about them, hear stories from what Red Line Hotels is doing with them, how they're finding success, go to getrevenueresults.com. That's getrevenueresults.com. Bruce, I love revenue management, and these guys seem to be doing something right, especially as we're recording this here in the Las Vegas market.
It's one of those micromanagement things that has really born about a whole new end of the business. You know, that's something that the front office manager used to do many years ago. That's something that was never coordinated underneath a full brand umbrella or a full franchise company umbrella before. But now there's an awful lot more synergies available. And, of course, collection of that data makes a difference.
Yes, it sure does. And make sure you check that out. GetRevenueResults.com. They'll explain to you how you folks out there could be more profitable in your hotel business by partnering with them.
So do they have a B2B page as well as a person-to-person page? Because I want to get more revenue.
Well, you could also go to duettocloud.com, Bruce.
Okay.
All right.
Very good.
That's their brand new site with lots of new products out there for you. Man, I'm excited to have all these advertisers jumping on board. If you guys want to jump on board and advertise too, make a...
well, you're worth it, Glenn. You know, you're worth it.
Thank you. Thank you very, very, very much. I appreciate that. Wow. I got to tell you, it's nice to be validated, finally. Finally!
I've been working on it for years. You know, I'm glad that I could print it out today for you on this lovely Friday.
And if you're listening to the podcast, be sure you reach out to me at Traveling Glenn or drop me an email, glenn@rouse.media. That's ROUSE.media. I got to change that to a no vacancy type of email at some point, but I have not yet. Now, listen, every single week I ask each and every one of you to please give me 5-star ratings on Facebook, write a review. I want to thank the folks of you that did it, and I want to ask the folks of you that have not done it to please do it. Please do.
You got to learn how to rate the podcast because it isn't as easy as some people may portray, but once you learn how to do it, the rating of the podcast is what gets the better advertisers, which is what gets the better content, which is what makes Glenn put on a happy face.
Yes, and I definitely want a happy face, and I do appreciate everybody's support up until now. Man, you know, it's exciting to be doing another show with you, Bruce, and one of the things is right now I'm in the middle of a multi-city road tour here. I was fortunate enough at the beginning of this week, I had the honor to speak in front of the Washington Hospitality Association, talking about immunizing yourself from being a commoditized product through great storytelling. And I guess the other thing to add in there is also by using Duetto. They'd probably help you out there. But also, now that was in Seattle. Now I'm in Vegas. Next week we're going to the Lodging Conference in Phoenix. A lot of things going on, but there's one thing that seems to bother me a lot. No
You
matter
have to stay in a hotel room every night?
No, I typically love hotel rooms, and I got to tell you, the hotel room I had at the Tulalip Resort Casino up there in, I don't know where the heck it is, Washington State, was really a nicely executed product.
Wow. You complimented a hotel?
Yes. but hey, listen, Tulalip was great, but then I had the chance on Wednesday evening to stay at Inn at the Market, and that is right in Pike's Place. I highly encourage you to check that place out, inatthemarket.com. What an amazing view.
So
Puget
a resort off in the hinterlands destination versus the middle of a city.
Right.
Okay. And the differences of that hotel experience.
Yes.
So let me guess. Your city hotel room was probably half the size of your room at the resort.
Well, no.
Okay.
But that's just because they were really nice and gave me a suite because of some people that I know that
Oh.
introduced me to them. So it's
Okay.
really not a fair comparison.
Not a fair comparison.
I had this-
Were they both 4-star?
They really were, and
Yep.
both the sleeping experiences in both hotels were great. Tulalip was recently renovated towards the end of last year. Looks really terrific. Really focuses on feeling connected to the native peoples of the Pacific Northwest, which I enjoyed a lot. And then the Inn at the Market was a very modern spin, a very boutique-y kind of a feel with great hardwood floors throughout the entire room, and just a really nice, clean.
How do you
lines.
like the non-carpet guest room, Glenn? I mean, is that a thing for you? You like it?
Yeah, I really like it a lot.
I mean, in these big suites that you get now, you must get half the room is not carpet now, right?
That is true. And in this particular room, the bedroom itself had carpeting, but of course the bathroom did not. And then the living area was all, different type of flooring. And then it also had some throw rugs on it.
So in the hotel business now, for many years, carpet was the king. Roll it around everywhere you're going in the hotel. It's easy to pull up. It's easy to replace. It's easy to maintain. But what we have seen, and one of the things that we have today that I think may be different from the 90s, is we're now having the flooring wars in the hotel business. And is it carpet? Is it carpet tile? Is it luxury vinyl tile? Is it some other alternative to a standard flooring surface? And there's lots of discussion around it, Glenn. And one of the things that I find, is that the transition between the carpet and the tile, or the luxury vinyl tile and the carpet, or the Axminster carpet and the carpet tile, the transition is always clunky.
Right.
Do you find that? Is that one of your design challenges, Glenn?
I don't know if I've noticed clunky at all, in fact. But we are going to be
Have
talking
you stubbed
about,
your toe?
We are going to be talking about hotel design flaws today, and you just got me thinking. That being said, I don't want to get into a whole flooring discussion today because my good friends over Porcelanosa are going to be coming out with a product that's going to really excite and surprise everybody coming soon, and we'll be having an opportunity to talk about more about that in the future. But keep your ears out to this podcast and others on our network for more information coming soon.
There are a lot of manufacturers out there doing different flooring solutions today, and I'm talk with a lot of them about how to change and how to work with one manufacturer and what the benefits are. And it's one of the challenges you have in the business today is that it's a lot different to install carpet versus some of these alternative flooring solutions.
Right.
Yeah, we're not just rolling the roll down the hallway and stapling every 5 feet.
No.
Much more complicated.
But that was fun to watch when the guys would do that. Although I had fear that they'd roll it up and I'd get stuck in it and suffocate and stuff like that. But that's just childhood nightmares. You guys don't need to concern yourselves with that. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about hotel room design flaws. As I tried to start saying, but then got horrifically sidetracked, as we typically do here on the No Vacancy podcast, especially when Bruce is on board, is that I've been staying in these hotels a lot lately, and I could stay in a hotel upwards of 100 nights a year, and I'm finding some things that I'm finding consistently inconsistent in the hotel experience, and I'm not exactly sure how they happen because all the designers I know are smart, intelligent people.
Are you talking about two towels versus three?
Talking about what now?
2 towels versus 3?
No, I am not talking about 2 towels versus 3. I need 5 because I'm disgusting.
Yeah.
So with all the weight gain that I put on lately, I actually need a lot more towels in order to clean myself up.
Extra work.
Well, it takes a whole towel or two just to lift up the layers of my body that have grown too large. Now, all right. So since we're in the bathroom, Bruce, last January we shot a video on this one. The thing that really bothers me most is you've got this beautiful sink, you've got this beautiful faucet, but the faucet comes out about an inch into the sink or whatever, and then you can't even put your hands underneath it cleanly without banging up against the back of the sink in order to wash your hand. Why does that have to happen to us, Bruce?
And then all of the water from washing the hands goes onto the backsplash and not into the sink.
Right. And honestly, it makes me feel like I'm a real slob, which I am, but then I'm going to be ashamed in front of the housekeeping department for getting water all over the place unless it dries up. But more importantly, they have to come in and then do a lot of extra work cleaning up.
Yeah. Well, I have asked this question before, Glenn, and I will tell you that there are 2 answers to this question. The first answer to the question is that the manufacturer of the sink faucet, if you will, okay, is somewhat hamstrung by local ordinances.
Right.
Okay, in terms of how far that draw can come out into the sink. Yes.
Really?
Second thing
Wait,
is...
Why
Second
is
thing
there
is,
any ordinance about something like that? That seems ridiculous.
Well, we don't know why, okay, but what we do know, okay, is that it happens more often than not. I mean, you'd think it would be an easy thing to solve, okay? But it's also a price-conscious issue.
So you save a few bucks.
Save a few bucks.
But aren't you going to lose that money and all the extra time it takes the housekeeping team every single day to have to
Housekeeping's
clean all
got
that
to
up?
clean it anyway. They got to clean it anyway, whether there's water there or not.
Well, you just really depressed me.
Whether there's water there or not.
Right.
I mean, I would never put that kind of sink faucet into my house. I mean,
Right.
I have commented on this many times, okay? And it's not just the fat guy problem, but it's more of a cost savings upon installation.
But I would argue that it cuts into the experience in a significant kind of a way that's annoying. But I guess if everyone's doing it exactly the same way and it's annoying me all over the place, I'm not going to remember the place that annoyed me doing it at all.
Well, you remembered when I annoyed you when you were 7. So
That'll never forget. That was
okay,
a very
I
dark,
mean,
dark day.
Glenn doesn't forget much.
No, it wasn't really fair. Guys, I thought it was my fudge bar. I was going to eat the fudge bar. Then he took it.
And then I pushed you into the bushes.
Right. All right. So I didn't know Bruce Ford at age 7, but I did have nightmares about Bruce Ford at age 7. And then they all came true when I met you about 20 years ago. Okay, so the next thing that kind of really bothers me, and this happened to me at a hotel this week, not one of the 2 I mentioned, but another one recently. I want to be clear. I'm seeing a lot of change right now, and I'm working with some companies creating content with furniture companies that actually put the technology in the furniture. But some of these companies, not the ones that I'm talking about, but some of these companies don't seem to be putting the technology in a particularly thoughtful way. For example, they had the power strip in there, and the opening in order to put the cables in was probably 2.5 to 3 inches wide. And you opened up a little flap, and inside was 2 USB ports stacked on top of each other, and several regular 3-pronged outlets in there, right? So my laptop plug was, it's got a big base to it. Most of them have that big base to it now, right? Wouldn't even fit in the hole. So completely rendering that 100% useless for me to charge my laptop in there. Then I try to put in my phone charger, and I need the ending of my phone charger as opposed to just using the USB slip because otherwise I suffer from slow charging. You need that little thing in order to have it be the typical speed of charging. So I put it in. I had to jam it in, and then I really couldn't get it out very easily, and I had a big fight with it in order to pull that that charger out. So they've gone to all of this time and all of this effort to create a nice-looking piece of furniture with the technology plugged into it, but then nobody thought to take a moment and take some chargers that they're using around their house in their own lives to just see if they would work.
So again, you have a marrying together of two different technologies there. The furniture company doesn't make plugs, and the plug company doesn't make furniture. So when the owner of the hotel or the designer that's designing the hotel or the contractor that might be buying the product, when they say we need power, okay, it becomes, number one, an afterthought, and then number two, a price-conscious decision. Price-conscious decisions in hotel room designs lead to epic fails, Glenn.
Yes.
Okay.
I think we should just call this podcast, fail everything because of your price-conscious decision. So,
price-conscious decision in hotel design leads to failure.
Yeah.
Okay, and it, I mean, I saw it the other day in the Seattle airport. They had put in these great plugs, 2 3-prong plugs with 4 USB ports on every plug.
Mm-hmm.
All the USB ports on these 3 plugs that were facing me were all blown out. And the reason they were blown out is because people had to push so hard to get it in that they have fouled up the whole function of the outlet.
Right.
And none of them worked because they again, a price-conscious decision.
Right. Yeah. It drives me crazy. All right. Here's another one that really drives me nuts. All right. I know that a lot of people stopped using desks to work at. I get that. I'm not one of those guys. I like to put my laptop down on the desk, and I like to sit comfortably in my task chair. Now, the hotel industry's done great at putting in good quality chairs, but still, a lot of times, unless they have adjustable height on them, they don't match the height of the desk in any reasonable way. And I'm an average height person, 5'10", right? And I have to put pillows under my ass in order to be able to have the right angle in order to type effectively, which is really ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, see, Glenn, here we go again. In your hotel room, you're going to hook your laptop up for production typing. Most business travelers today are eschewing the laptop. They're not even bringing it.
Mm-hmm.
They're living with their tablet device and their mobile phone.
Right.
Okay? The production typing in a hotel room, the age is gone. There's going to be a time, Glenn, and there was a brand that shall remain nameless, but an upscale brand that said, we don't need desks anymore in the hotel.
Right.
And if you want a desk, we'll be happy to sell you a room, but that's going to cost more.
Right.
Where they actually thought that an a la carte desk was a good idea. Okay, and they actually thought that, not everybody needs that anymore.
Well, not everybody needs that anymore.
No, they don't.
Right.
Okay, so you live in the minority.
Right, but as long as I do live in the minority,
but it's still got to work.
I don't care.
But it's still got to work.
Right. I'm the majority in that
It doesn't
minority.
matter if you're putting on your makeup, Glenn, or you're trying to use your laptop. It's still got to work.
Mm-hmm.
And the functionality of the chair to the table has still got to work.
Right.
And I get it that in some hotels, the design of the rooms are different. They're not all the same, okay? But still, it's got to function. It's got to work. It's like you buy these beautiful flat-screen televisions with these 1080p technology, but you can't get enough bandwidth to the television to have it work well.
Right.
In a guest room, that's a disaster.
Hey, thank you for giving us another one of our room pet peeves. Now, I don't think about that actively because I'm lame. I never turn on the TV in the room, like, ever.
There's nothing more annoying than you get to a hotel and you want to watch, and sports is obviously high impact and high feed, and it needs the highest quality that you can get from the cable at the moment to be able to show you that TV and that picture unpixelated. Can't tell you how annoying it is to try and watch football on a television that pixelates.
Right.
It's a mess.
That really...
Okay? And you call down to the desk and like, yeah, we've known about that problem since 1984. And I said, well, why are you still renting the room?
Right.
I mean, obviously, you only get complaints once a week about this?
Yeah.
I mean, it's and it's one of the issues in the older buildings, Glenn.
Yes.
Okay, is the wiring and cabling has changed so much. And the capacity with which what can travel through that wire has changed so much. And the televisions have really moved very quickly. I mean, the iPhone just turned 10, Glenn, but the HD and the 1080p format is less than 5 years old, but we're already on to 4K.
Yes, we are.
And 4D. And I mean, it continues to move very quickly. And when a guest room is trying to replicate the experience that you have in your home, obviously the signal to that box has got a big part of it.
Right. Yeah. You're absolutely right about that. Definitely a challenge. And these are, that one is a little bit more complicated, I think, than about some of the other ones that we've discussed so far.
You would think so, but it's as complicated as both of those.
All right, now here's one that I know can't be fixed, and I appreciate why it can't be fixed, but it still annoys me anyway. And that would be every single time I go into a hotel room, I never know where the switches are going to be on a lamp. Right? Mm-hmm. Now, that obviously is because there are so many different manufacturers out there, and they all make that decision. But it'd be really great if they all got together and just kind of said, we're always going to put it in this place on the base, right? That would be helpful because then, I'm already tired from turning on 45 different lighting switches in the room and turning them off.
So
every
here's
single time.
the rule of thumb, okay, is that if you have a switch for a non-table lamp, the thing that you should be doing now today, which is I think we're beginning to see, is the switch to turn it on has got to be as close to the light bulb as possible. That's the easiest way for somebody to find it. So when you're looking around in our room right there, they got a switch there, switch there.
Right,
we're looking
as
close
at
to the light bulb as possible. The tall floor lamp to your left,
I think should have a foot pedal.
Well, the switch is right up there where close to the light bulb.
Yes, it is, but it's also
very visible.
But it's facing towards the window right now. I have to actually turn this around.
Well, you have two eyes, right? Okay, there you look. Now the table lamp is different. The table lamp is on the base, okay, but it's actually a lighted switch.
It's not always on the base. Sometimes you got to go in there, and there's like two different sides to it with little hangy deals that you got to pull down.
This sounds like you were staying at a 25-year-old hotel, Glenn.
I don't know, man. I don't know. But
when you're renovating the hotels, this is the new protocols, and we're beginning to see those. Okay,
so then this is a problem that's going to sort itself out over time.
Glenn, this is manufacturers working with one or working with seven.
All right. Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
When a designer comes in and they pick the pretty wall lamp, that's from one manufacturer.
I get
and the sconces from a second manufacturer, and the table lamp from another manufacturer. You get different quality throughout all of it.
Agreed.
And there's no consistency.
No.
You can clearly see that all these lamps were picked from the same company.
Right, which is nice. I just want a little bit more consistency on it, and I also, with the lamps, make sure that the plugs on the lamp are enough to handle the bigger phone chargers at least. I get if you can't get my big
But again, those plugs
are
wearing out faster because, again, they're making a price decision.
Yeah.
So the lamp might last 12 years, but the plug's going to last 5.
Great point,
then the lamp is dead.
Right. So it doesn't
because
matter.
If that plug doesn't work in the base of that lamp after 5 years, the lamp's no good.
Yeah.
And who's going to replace that plug, Glenn?
Oh, certainly not me, Bruce Ford.
Okay,
certainly
well, because
not
it's
me.
probably bought in the cheapest way possible from an inexpensive overseas manufacturer there's nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Power is great, Glenn, but make a good decision on the types of power and the plugs and solution that you're putting together with a different manufacturer. Make a good decision there.
Last one that I have on my list, Bruce, blackout shades that don't ever come together in a meaningful way, so you have a stream of light that pierces through and blinds you in an otherwise dark room.
So somebody missed their measurement by a 1/4 inch?
It seems like it. I like the ones that overlap and have like a good foot of overlap because that's the only way to get it to work properly. I think.
Again, that's quality installation, Glenn. You get what you pay for in life.
Right.
Okay, some people want to hire the guy that's $6 a foot. Some people understand that the guy who is $9 a foot is going to put a better product together that's going to last longer.
Yep.
But no one's going to get to the $9 a foot.
No.
So, I mean, with drapes, you're putting something together in a new hotel. Okay, it's got to last, and we have all seen hotel brands that started where they made a decision about the inexpensive products so that they could keep the cost down of the initial developments, but some of those inexpensive products wear out too fast. If there's one thing we are in the hotel business is that we're slow to adapt, and we're slow to adapt because it's got to work.
Right.
And if it doesn't work after a couple of years, you've made a poor decision. Who wants to replace things faster than their life cycle?
Right. Nobody.
Nobody,
Bruce.
Nobody. 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 Nobody.
All right, Brucey. Is there any other design flaws that I didn't just spontaneously think of that you would like to bring to light?
Well, I've seen it a lot in hotel rooms, these glass surfaces. I'm not a big fan.
Right.
They show all of the dirt. They show all the fingerprints. They have got to be a nightmare to clean.
And my computer mouse doesn't like them either.
No, and I'm not a big fan. I mean, to me, a solid hard surface on the top of your furniture, glass is just not appealing to me. It doesn't bring the room more upscale. I'm not a big fan.
All right, fair enough. Okay, that seems more of an opinion than a flaw. But okay.
Well, I don't know.
Well, I'm glad we're getting out your opinions as well. I'm just looking around this particular room that we're in right now. I mean, overall, solid. Recently had a renovation. Looks pretty good. In general, I don't know if there are any other real design flaws that are jumping out at me. So I'd throw this question out to all of you in the audience. Drop me a line at TravelingAGlenn on Twitter or Instagram, or find us on our Facebook page and let us know what.
So, do you
think
have a
are certain
mailbag
design
email,
flaws.
Glenn? Do you have specifically a mailbag email? Like if I was going to send it to the mailbag,
I got to do
no
that.
vacancy.
I really got to do that. That's
all right. So rather than call it mailbag at novacancy.com.
Yeah.
Let's call it whiny little bitch at novacancy.com. It will more fit your personality.
Right. Thank you. I definitely appreciate that and the love that I'm feeling right now. If you guys are totally into this and you want to subscribe to our weekly newsletter, and by our I mean mine, because Bruce doesn't help me with the newsletter. Although it would be nice if you would every once in a while, even though you have nothing to do.
I have nothing to do
with my
There's nothing going on over here.
Yeah. So I'd love for all of you to subscribe to the newsletter. I made it really, really easy to do that. Just text the word hotel to 66866. That's the word hotel to 66866. Bruce, we're nearly half an hour into this thing. We were going to talk about some of these numbers. Maybe just give me a highlight or two, and then next week when we're in Phoenix at the lodging conference, we'll do a total dissecting of the vibe that we're seeing out there in the audience for the lodging industry and how all of your numbers are going to be changing.
Well, we
things.
haven't had a big conference since June in the hotel business. So typically when we get here into the fourth quarter, people are kind of looking for what's going to happen next and what's coming along the road. And certainly 2017 has probably been better than most people expected in terms of operating performance improvement. In terms of the new construction pipeline, we are up this quarter. The 3Q numbers that are premiering here under our feet say that we're up from 599,000 guest rooms in the pipeline to 608,000.
Wow.
We have more than 200,000 rooms under construction for the first time since 2008. So the pipeline from a new construction perspective is there, and it's a growing pipeline still, but we're building smaller hotels than we were in the last cycle, so a lot of still upscale and upper mid-scale type and product and service and price quality. And so what that is leading to is developers probably building more hotels but smaller hotels.
Right.
So city centers and high-rate suburban RevPAR markets are getting a lot of interest, and we still have 7 markets with 100 projects out there. So lots more detail next week in our what we'll call the Lodging Conference episode.
Yes.
But
Deep
also,
dive.
if you're attending the Lodging Conference in Phoenix next week, Lodging Econometrics will be there. We have a stand in the exhibit hall. And if you're lucky enough, you might find Glenn somewhere around. But I'm also hosting a panel. We have a statistics overview that we do each year that my brother JP will be doing. So it will be we'll be there to be seen.
Yes.
And we have all the 4Q forecasts and all of the forecasts for the next couple of years and lots of new and exciting things to premiere. So.
Right. And if you are at the Lodging Conference, come see me on Tuesday afternoon or late morning. I got to check the time for a social media panel. That's going to be a lot of fun. And then on Wednesday morning, general session, handling the C-suite panel with a lot of top executives from the industry. Looking forward to that. Plus, I'll be shooting a lot of videos over there as we try to expand our video coverage here in No Vacancy. Instead of just having the 30, that 1 hour podcast every week and the 30 minutes bonus episodes I put out, we're going to have these great short videos with industry influencers. So that'll be a lot of fun. Be on the lookout for all of that. Coming to our Facebook page, coming to YouTube, and soon to new novacancynews.com. Hopefully launching really, really soon.
Now, this has been difficult. I've been working with the planning and steering committee on Glenn's video presentations, and it's hard to package him up in 2 minutes. So I said that you need to ask the question when the video starts and don't put yourself on camera, Glenn, and let the other person talk. But we're still working out the kinks.
Yeah, well, we're gonna have a lot of different types of videos and styles out there. So those of you that are repulsed by me don't have to look at my my face. So you got that going on for you. In the meantime, be sure to check out getrevenueresults.com to learn all about the great stories from Redline Hotels and more and how they are improving revenue strategy through their partnerships with Duetto. And coming up right after this commercial break, man, am I so excited. I have industry entrepreneur and icon Chip Conley. He's one of those guys that I first admired when I first came into the business in the late 1990s. We hear his story about the rise of Joie de Vivre Hotels, how he started it, why he left it. We also get into his role with Airbnb and how he helped grow the company by 25 times in size during his tenure with them, and why the guy loves festivals so much and why they're so important to human interaction in the future. So, Bruce Ford, I want to thank you so much for being here, buddy.
Well, the invitation got lost in the mail, Glenn, but I still found it.
Yeah, that's a shame. I got to do better at losing the invitation to get you on the show. Meanwhile, he will be back next week, much to my chagrin and probably all of yours as well. I want to thank you guys for listening. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this message.
Have a question for your host, Glenn? Tweet him now at Traveling Glenn. No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast. We'll be right back.
Hey everybody, Glenn here. And if you're like me, then I know that you love terrific art. Art that creates a sense of place. Art that tells a story of where you are. Art that adds a level of detail that you can't get anywhere else. And great folks that do this, Kevin Barry Fine Art Associates. You can find them online at kevinbarryfineart.com, and I highly encourage that you check them out. One recent project that I'm totally in love with is the Fairmont, Washington, D.C., where they created a custom project with a local artist, and they created some of this on site. They actually created a multi-dimensional wall sculpture from gold blocks, which is an abstracted map grid of the Washington, D.C. area. It's got different elevations to it and looks absolutely fantastic. It was done along with Deborah Forrest and Amanda Jackson of Forrest Perkins, which is now Perkins Eastman. And they all work together to create this fabulous new look. So if you want to create a fabulous new look for your hotel, or if you just love great art, check out kevinbarryfineart.com or give him a call at 310-945-2655. Let him know Glenn sent you.
Back to the show. It's No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast with your host, Glenn Hausman.
All right, and we're back with the No Vacancy podcast. I want to thank you all for continuing to listen, and I got to tell you, I am super duper excited about this particular interview because I have one of my industry heroes on the line. Not to embarrass you, sir, but I got Mr. Chip Conley, who was really very influential to me very early in my career. How are you, sir?
Wow, are we that old?
Yeah, dude. I don't know how it's happened. I've been in this business for more than 20 years. You got an early start, though.
Yes.
You started, at age 26 in this business with your own company?
More than 30 years ago, when I was just a couple years out of Stanford Business School, I bought my first motel. It wasn't even a hotel. In a bad neighborhood in San Francisco, and called it the Phoenix, and that was the start of my boutique hotel chain, Joie de Vivre.
Yes, and we're going to get into that in a second, but I'm really glad to have Chip on today because he is re-releasing a book coming out as we run this interview just a few days from now. He's re-releasing Peak, How Great Companies Get Their Mojo from Maslow. It's all revised and updated, available on Amazon.com, and I'm going to say wherever books are sold. Is that right, Chip?
That's exactly right. It was great to be able to take this concept that I created at Joie de Vivre and wrote about 10 years ago, then I'd apply it at Airbnb and see a bunch of other companies like Facebook and WeWork also apply the concepts behind the book Peak.
It must be amazing when you look back on your career to see what you've achieved. And so many of us want to reach those levels. And I guess a lot of this methodology that you have in this book was directly related to your ability to be successful in a really challenging world that we live in.
Yeah, I didn't plan to be a writer when I grew up, although I did imagine it when I was a kid. And the thing that became true for me as an entrepreneur and a CEO is I wanted to make some sense of the learning I was having along the way. So sometimes writing things down or giving a speech on it forces you to become a teacher, and the best teachers are great learners. And in that process, I was able to distill some wisdoms that I shared. And in this particular case, this book was my third book. I'm working on my fifth book right now. But this book, Peak, very much became extremely popular all around the world. So I'm really lucky to have channeled something that was as valuable as it was.
Well, throughout your career, you've managed to tap into the the hospitality zeitgeist, so to speak. I think because you came at it in a different way and you didn't go into the hospitality industry through one of the major companies. While it may have been more challenging in one way, you didn't get trained into the way things, quote unquote, air quotes, should be, right? So it probably led you to create and innovate in ways that you might have been stymied if you had gone a different direction.
Yeah, there's no, if you look at where disruption happens or where innovation happens, it so often happens by pioneers outside of that industry. In the case of the hotel industry and boutique hotels, it was Ian Schrager as a nightclb owner, and it was Bill Kimpton as an investment banker, and it was me, frankly, as a kid, in my mid-20s. So, in Airbnb, it was two designers at age 26 and one Harvard engineer at age 24 who created the home sharing movement. So, I think that what we know is that as we get more proficient in something, we get more wedded to the way it's always been done.
Right.
And that works against us in terms of seeing the opportunity for major innovation.
Right. I think that's exactly right. And I see the same thing happening in politics in the sense that we don't want incumbents to stick around forever because they get set in their ways and they're unable to create and innovate. But I don't want to have a political discussion. That's not what this is about. That's just going to annoy everybody, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What I want to talk about is how you got that business started with the Phoenix Hotel. How did you, manage to get that first property and then create something that was wholly different than the mainstream hospitality business was preaching at the time?
So what I knew at age 25 or 26 was that I had a bunch of friends my age sleeping on my couch when they visited San Francisco. So they were clearly not staying in hotels.
Right.
And so my little, survey of about a half dozen friends was they didn't want to stay at a Holiday Inn because it was boring. They couldn't afford staying at one of the ritzier hotels in town that were more sort of luxury. And a lot of the hotels in town were sort of old school. Right. And so I could see that there was a need for a cooler, funkier, but affordable kind of place. So I went out and I looked for something. I had zero money, and I ultimately, the way I found it, I found a motel in the Tenderloin on a land lease, which allowed me to literally buy the lease and the improvements for about $1 million. And then I put $200,000 into renovation. I raised that money from people I grew up with, people I went to college and business school with, family, friends. And the hotel opened, the renovation took 3 or 4 months. That was it. Wow. And it opened, and it within a year, a year or two, it was actually featured in People magazine as this sort of crossroads for creative people. Basically, it became the rock and roll hotel of San Francisco.
Yeah, and that's a pretty amazing thing. And I'm curious, this is how you got people to give you all of that money, because when I was 25, 26, nobody wanted to give me any money for anything. I was just hoping to score a ticket to go to the next Fish show, Yeah,
you're right. I mean, I think there was an element that I was so passionate about what the business plan was, and I had proven myself over the course of my young life that I had been a success in many different ways.
Amazing.
That people just said, you know what, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna see if you can make it. And no one invested a lot. I think the most anybody invested was $50,000 or $100,000. It was not like no one was putting their life savings on it. Thank God.
Yeah, right.
Because the likelihood of success was pretty low, but it turned out to succeed, and it led me to the next 24 years as CEO of the company and creating 52 boutique hotels.
Yeah, and in that journey to create those 52 boutique hotels, one of the things that struck me early, it seemed like when you burst into my consciousness within the hospitality industry.
I'm sorry I did that.
Yes.
That sounds like the ultimate disruptor if I'm keeping you awake at night.
No, well, you were the ultimate disruptor, because until that time, and I was probably still in my early days of the business and believing everything that everybody said in terms of the big brands and stuff. But you came in with a very different and refreshing approach, and it stuck with me all of this time. And I've used a lot of these precepts in my journey and, teaching as an adjunct at NYU for a number of years, and on the keynote speeches that I do now with customer behavior, about how you were really focused on psychographics before anyone knew what the word psychographics were. And to me, it was so easy for you to explain when you said, I look at a hotel and I look at a magazine and I try to take what the ethos is of that magazine and apply it to the lifestyle of that hotel.
Yeah, it was, it was frankly out of necessity. The first hotel, the Phoenix, was in the Tenderloin, bad neighborhood. We had a group of about 7 of us who were concepting what it was going to be like when it grew up, this hotel. And there was a lot of dissension and or disagreement in the first meeting. And so for the second meeting, I just said, listen, we got to figure out some way to create some alignment here. Bring a magazine to the next meeting that you think defines this hotel, because everybody had sort of different ideas. Right. Weirdly, 5 of the 7 people showed up at the next meeting with Rolling Stone magazine.
Interesting.
So there was more unanimity amongst the group than we thought. And so we said, well, what are 5 adjectives to define Rolling Stone magazine? We came up with funky, irreverent, adventurous, cool, and young at heart. And then everything we did in trying to concept and create that hotel came back to those 5 adjectives, whether it was the staff we hired or the decor in the rooms or the kind of restaurant we created.
That's interesting. Yeah, go on.
The miraculous part of it was not so much that it was a concepting tool. It was that we found within the first year after we opened, the people who fell in love with the hotel were people who would use those 5 adjectives to describe themselves on a good day. So the hotel was creating what I call an identity refreshment. Meaning a person stays at the Phoenix and 3 days later they feel a little more funky and irreverent. And for a certain niche of people in the population, that meant something to them. Not for everybody. And that's what boutique hotels, they're very niche-oriented products.
Right, and they should be, because my whole argument always is if you try to appeal to absolutely everyone, you're going to appeal to pretty much no one. And one of the examples that I give now is the difference between like the Transformers movie, a giant blockbuster film, right, compared to a small independent feature that actually makes you feel something, and those characters stick with you over time, right? Because I don't remember anything about Transformers except there was a whole lot of stuff happening on screen that I can't focus on, right?
Yeah.
So
your kids probably appreciated it more than you did.
Yeah, probably. My kids appreciate it a lot more than I do, because life's ruined me at this point, Chip, and I've become very cynical. but that's okay. So how do you then go from one hotel to 52 hotels?
Well, we used that same psychographic model of the magazine. So every time it was 1 or 2 magazines, 5 adjectives. It was, frankly, a really valuable sort of fast path to understanding what we were trying to create. I made a conscious decision that a lot of people disagreed with and didn't understand, which was we were only going to focus on California. And frankly, for the longest time, for 15 years, only on Northern California.
Right.
So the premise that I had was Holiday Inn is product line standardized and geographically diverse.
Right.
Our approach was the exact opposite. We were geographically standardized only in California, but product line diverse. So every single hotel was different. And I just sort of felt like you could either do one path well or the other. Holiday Inn can do their path, which is standardized cookie cutter hotels all over the world. And I felt like we could not do the same. I didn't think I could go out and say, let's go out and create a hotel in Houston based upon the personality of that community or neighborhood in Houston. Then let's go do one in Buffalo, New York. Then let's go do one in Indianapolis. I just felt, and how can I touch and feel those enough to understand whether we're really creating that sort of personalized, soulful experience that I think a boutique hotel provides. So long story short is I chose on just to focus exclusively in California. I'm proud of that. But ultimately, when I sold the company to John Pritzker, he chose to really focus, on the whole country.
Right, of course. But I think that made sense for you in particular, especially when you think about operating the hotels. If you had one in Houston and one in Buffalo, New York, it would be a lot more complicated, and it would probably wind up stymieing your growth for a little bit.
Well, it also allowed us to do smaller hotels.
Right.
Now, our average hotel size when I sold the company was about 125 rooms, but for the longest time, our average hotel size was about 50 to 60 rooms. We had hotels as small as 10, 15, and 20 rooms, which you can't do if they're going to be in disparate locations.
Right.
At one point we had 21 hotels just in San Francisco alone. So I liked that. As long as you're picking the right markets, then it works for you.
Yeah. At what point did you realize you touched a nerve with the consumer public?
Oh, I think it was more than anything just getting the kind of feedback we received. We became about a $250 million a year company in terms of annual revenues, but we spent a total of $50,000 a year on advertising. Mm-hmm. So what was very clear over time is we did not have to advertise because our primary marketing was done by our customers. And back in the old days, that was word of mouth. And then, more recently, it's become word of mouse, so to speak, mm-hmm. In the sense of people spreading the word through social media and through other means to people they don't even know.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Do you think that in today's day and age, you could do what you did back then, or has time moved on too much?
No, I think it's absolutely doable. And I see, a lot of young entrepreneurs who reach out to me as a sort of a mentor, doing it, and many of them doing it in a singular market and not trying to go all over. The ones actually I find that are struggling are the ones who say, let's put a dot in the map all over the world, and they don't realize that they can't be in two places at the same time.
Right. That would be a little bit complicated. Although if you figure out that technology, which you might do next, you've been doing so well.
It's probably coming, I'm sure.
All right. So at what point did you realize that you had enough and, hey, I'm done with Joie de Vivre. It's time to move on.
Well, here's my moving band. I can hear that in the background. No, I think, what it was for me more than anything was realizing I had started to write books. Mm-hmm. By the time 2007 came along, when Peak, the first edition of Peak came out 10 years ago, I realized I loved writing and speaking. And I think that you can have one of three relationships with your work. It's either a job, a career, or a calling.
Right.
And I had a calling for a very long time as the founder and CEO of Joie de Vivre. But what started to become clear is that had become more like a job. And this writing and speaking thing had become more of the calling. And then the Great Recession came along, and that was, a deep downturn is a great wake-up call. Mm-hmm. Use a little pun for a hotelier. It's a wake-up call to understand what's important to you.
Yeah.
And what I realized in that Great Recession is I didn't want to be doing this the rest of my life. I actually wanted to figure out a way to figure out what was next. And I thought what was next was writing and speaking and maybe doing some other things. But and that led me to, over the course of a couple of years, by 2010. Selling the company to John Pritzker. I still owned the real estate.
Right.
So at that point, I still owned 18 hotels, but I sold the management company and the brand. I now have sold 9 of the hotels, and I still own 9 hotels.
Wow. I had no idea you did that part of it. So what would you tell people to how they could tap into their calling and pursue their ultimate passions?
Well, I think we all have some sense of what we're naturally good at. And sometimes you can actually look at your childhood.
This is what the thing is. We have a sense of it, but I think we discredit it because if we're good at something, it must not have value because it's easy to us. At least that's the lens that I grew up thinking.
Yeah, that's sort of that can be true. I think sometimes it's other people who can give us that feedback,
right?
And actually help be the truth teller to help us understand what is it that we have a world-class skill. So I think trying to get clear at a relatively young age what you want to be world-class at, even if you're not there with it yet, that's the key. And for me, I knew that I was pretty good at concepting and creating things. I'm a creative soul, and I also am pretty good at leadership. I enjoy leading and working with people. And so those are the things that I was focused on. And the recommendation I would make to people, and I make it all the time, is sometimes go back to look at what you did well as a child. Find things in your life that when you're doing them, they become timeless, meaning you lose track of time in the process of doing them.
Right.
And I think that's, to me, that's ultimately, for some people, that could be accounting because they like math.
Right. Agreed.
And they like the precision of solving problems. And for others, it might be like being a chief operating officer because they like making the trains run on time, and they like being sort of in the trenches. So it varies from person to person.
Yeah, absolutely. There is no one size fits all solution for anybody. I think it's figuring out. You have all these keys, and you have to figure out which one actually unlocks the door to your true ultimate self. Right.
Yep.
All right. So then at what point did you wind up getting involved with Airbnb? And at the time, did you know that they were a disruptor and maybe that's what attracted to you? Or were you just saying, hey, I'm a little bored? We just pulled the up on this.
Yeah, it was a variety of things. So it was early 2013. I had been executive chair at Joie de Vivre for about a year and a half after I sold some of my interest. I didn't sell my whole interest. I sold a majority interest. So I had a minority interest. A year and a half as executive chair, and then I started to evolve out of there and sold the rest of my shares. During that time of starting to evolve out of Joie de Vivre, I was trying to figure out what was next. I went around the world to all kinds of festivals because I'm on the board of Burning Man. I created a website called Fest 300 with a co-founder that is now part of Everfest. Mm-hmm. But I knew that was just more of a passion project. It wasn't a business.
Yeah.
Out of the blue, I got a call from Brian Chesky in early 2013. Brian Chesky is the co-founder and CEO of Airbnb. I frankly didn't know much about Airbnb. I was a classic, I was not the disruptor. I was the establishment, and I had blinders. I was a hotelier who had no idea what this thing was. So he and his 2 co-founders approached me. They were 21, 23 years younger than me. They're millennials. And they said, when we grow up, people see us as a tech startup. But when we grow up, we would like to be the world's, biggest hospitality company. And we want to democratize hospitality. So all of that sounded good to me and sounded interesting. I like the idea of helping hosts who are micro entrepreneurs around the world learn how to provide hospitality to travelers. And most of our travelers, the majority, are actually people traveling across country lines, across boundaries or borders. So I said yes, but I was a little nervous. I was 52 years old. I'd never worked in a tech company before. The average age of the employee in the company was 26, so I was twice their age.
But it also must have reminded you of when you first started and had that first hotel. It
did. No, it very much did. I loved the rebellious spirit and all idealism. And Brian asked me to be his mentor. So I'm going to be mentoring the founder, but he wanted me to be the head of global hospitality and strategy and about 10 other things. And so I was going to be reporting to him too. So that was going to be weird. I was going to be reporting. I was reporting to a guy I'm mentoring who's 21 years younger than me. What's that gonna be like? Well, long story short is it took a lot. My next book that I'm working on that is going to come out next year is called Wisdom at Work, The Making of a Modern Elder. Mm-hmm. And the whole premise on this book is how do you create an environment where older people, 50 and older, have something to offer these millennials. But it goes in both directions. In the past, the elder was the person who dispensed wisdom. I think the modern elder is somebody who actually dispenses the wisdom, but also learns from the younger people as well. So I learned digital intelligence from them. They learned maybe a little bit of leadership and emotional intelligence from me. Long story short is what I felt about home sharing, which is what Airbnb was in the business of doing, was it was just taking boutique hotels, my history, 10 steps further. I think boutique hotels taught the hotel industry that predictability was less important for a certain kind of customer than experiential. You wanted something that felt like an experience and might actually feel like it was a reflection of the neighborhood in which it was located.
Right.
And so I think the idea of boutique hotels or living like a local, which is what we said boutique hotels are about, Airbnb just took that language and applied it and said, we want you to live like a local and belong anywhere. And as you know, since the time I joined the company, we're 25 times larger in terms of annual room nights than we were when I joined. And it's been a real fun experience, but, obviously complicated and disruptive, and occasionally a few hoteliers wag their finger at me and are pissed off. But to actually take a company and grow it 25 times such that it becomes a mainstream player and has guest satisfaction scores that are substantially higher than the hotel industry now,
right,
has been great.
Yeah, and I will say to the folks in the hotel industry, stop wagging your fingers. They left open the door to opportunity for those disruptors to come in, because the hospitality industry sometimes shields itself from innovation and doesn't open its eyes to see what's coming in a particular way. I went to so many events from the time you had joined Airbnb until recently, where it was just like they were just ignoring the whole thing that was going on and refusing to see the cultural shift that was taking place.
There's a Gandhi quote from the 1930s that I love, that when I first joined Airbnb, I actually said this to what was about 350 or 400 employees. We are now almost 10 times that size in terms of the number of employees. Gandhi said in the 1930s about the British, when India wanted its independence, first they ignore you, then they ridicule you, then they fight you, and then you win.
Right.
And so I sort of think that's been our path for a variety of different groups, whether it's corporate meeting planners, corporate or convention meeting planners, corporate travel managers, DMOs, the variety of different groups that have landlords, etc. We've gotten to a place. I'm not saying we've won, because we actually continue to actually be in trench warfare around public policy and all kinds of places around the world. But the trend line in terms of legitimization and taxation, which is important, paying occupancy tax, is very much clear at this point. And it's not like home sharing is going away. The question is, how is it going to be legislated in such a way that it works? And so that's been great. And I did it for 4 years. I loved it until I was incredibly burned out, because it was a lot of work. And now I'm just a strategic advisor to the founders.
So let's go from burned out to Burning Man. Yeah, clever little transition there. You love these global festivals. I see all the time on social media. You're somewhere different and interesting. You said it's a passion of yours, but I think it's more than that. I think it is also a great opportunity, because I see people, at least in the United States, loving food festivals, for example, right? That's the most common one that we have. But it's a place that we could all get together and share a passion and feel a sense of belonging. And I think we're going to just see continued increase of these things. What makes you love it, and what's your general sense of that whole universe?
Well, one of the things I said really early on when I first started studying the idea of why are festivals making a huge comeback in the 21st century, of festivals of all kinds, is the more digital we get, the more ritual we need. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is, the more we have this online presence and we are sort of completely interacting through URLs, there's more of a need for an IRL experience, which is an in real life experience. So I think that festivals and the growth of in-person connections have a lot to do with the fact that we are so digitally involved in our lives that we need that face-to-face. Our mirror neurons, which are these things in our brain, need to interact with each other face-to-face. So I think, across all types of festivals, we've seen major increase in the last 15 years.
So it's interesting that there is that psychological component behind it, not just because it's a good idea, so people are going.
Yeah.
So how does this all then relate to these, Maslow's needs in terms of satisfying ourselves? I want to pull it back to the thematic that you're doing in Peak.
Yes. Well, the basic theme in Peak is Maslow's hierarchy of needs has physiological, very basic needs at the base of the pyramid and self-actualization,
right,
or
like food, shelter, those kinds of things.
That's right. So I think the point is, frankly, at a festival, those are needs too. Like if you're going to Burning Man, you sort of want to make sure you've got where am I going to sleep and what my food situation is going to be, and et cetera. But the truth is, what happens in a festival environment is something that a sociologist 110 years ago called collective effervescence. Collective effervescence is when you are with a bunch of other people, and the experience in being with these other people is such that your sense of ego and identity starts to evaporate a little bit. And what comes in its place is this sense of connection and collective effervescence, or collective connection. And I think when you feel that sense of community and collective connection, wherever it is, whether it's in church, whether it's at a festival, whether it's at a political rally, when you feel this sense, or like a sporting event's a huge example, that's when people feel that interesting sense of like, wow, I'm part of something bigger than myself.
That's right. And for me, I get that feeling when I'm at a really great concert, and you can tell that the music is pulling everybody together, and we're all in that exact same moment. And when the crowd spontaneously bursts into a joyful, exuberant moment, then I think that all of us in that room feels more connected to humanity, which I think is an amazing kind of a thing.
Yep, exactly. So I think it's the future, and I think so go to a festival sometime.
Yeah. So you're going to be doing any more disrupting in the future?
Of course. Yes. I mean, the thing I'm working on now is this new book, Wisdom at Work: the Making of a Modern Elder. But in January, I will launch in a beta mode the first midlife gap year academy in the world.
Cool.
So it's basically the idea. It's taking my hospitality background, but also my interest in how do you help people reset and remake their life in midlife. And it's on 2 acres on a beach in Baja, California. And that opens in January and opens to the public in November of 2018. That will be a disruption because, quite frankly, there are a lot of people who are in their 40s and 50s who know that it's time for them to think through what they're going to do for the future.
Right.
Because if we're going to live till age 90 or 100, you're probably not going to retire at 65. So that's what this place is all about. It actually helps people to figure that out, and so it'll be the first of its kind.
So how do we even know that we need help figuring it out? Because I think sometimes we get so caught up in our experience that we fail to see that there are other options available to us.
I think that's what midlife crisis is for.
Yeah.
And midlife crisis sort of happens predominantly in people's 40s, and it's a time when people are really, frankly, overwhelmed with so many different things, and frankly, they've accumulated so much, whether it's family, kids, responsibilities, friends, all kinds of extracurricular activities, that they're in a place at that point where they have to start figuring out how to remake themselves, and maybe edit their life a little bit more. So, I see a lot of people who fit that profile, and that's why we're creating the place.
Yeah. My midlife crisis was awesome, by the way. It was really it was really a lot of fun. But the good news was that I accepted it when it was happening. And I figured out what was going to be my path to success, because I think all of us come to that crossroads where either we have to keep things as is and then possibly be miserable, or take that really scary leap and totally reinvent who you are as a human being so you can continue to blossom for decades to come.
And you are doing that now on the show.
Yes, I am. And coming soon, novacancynews.com, launching next week or two. So I'm very excited about that as well. But not as excited as I am for you. What a great story you have. So the book is called, of course, Peak: How Great Companies Get Their Mojo from Maslow. It's all new, revised, and updated, coming out next week. Any final thoughts on the book or anything else out there?
No, I think the bottom line is, life is pretty precious, so it's best suited to go out and find that passion and pursue it in your career. We spend an awful lot of time in our careers. Why not do something that you're passionate about?
Right, and I agree with you 100%. If you are not doing what you're really passionate about, you've got to figure out that pathway to get there. Because life doesn't have to be a horrible slog. It should be beautiful. It should be amazing, and you should be able to reach out and grab and love every single minute of it. Chip, thanks so much for being here.
Glenn, it's been a pleasure.
This has been really awesome, and I want to thank everybody for listening. Make sure you subscribe to our newsletter. Find me at Traveling Glenn online, and I will be back next week. That is, unless I decide to drop out of life and go hit some festivals around the world. I'll see you all next week. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much for listening to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman, online at rouse.media, on Twitter at Traveling Glenn, and on Facebook.com/Glenn.Hausman. We'll catch you next time.